Hi folks, my perspective here. As an artist, I'm astounded with gyroscopes because the gyroscope has the ability to maintain its axis fixed as it moves in 3D space. It maintains the original horizon line that it was set up at. So if you set it up skew, it would maintain that angle no matter how you move it in 3D space. So the principles that I find in perspective, I find these same principles working in the gyroscope. So this convinces me that the gyroscope, what we are seeing in operation, are the Creator's standards. These same standards we see in perspective, and the Creators put these standards in our eyes. We see according to these standards, where what is upright is always upright. Now in the system, we aren't taught the truth. For a gyroscope to work, the Earth has to be flat and motionless. And here's an example. This is what we are taught, and let's just listen to what this person says and let's look at it.
The Earth spins once per day, which means that if you live at the equator, the surface of the Earth with you on it is moving around 1,000 miles per hour to the east, relative to the center of the Earth. Even at 45 degrees latitude, the Earth's surface is moving 700 miles per hour to the east, so it kind of seems like it should be faster for airplanes to fly west. I mean, their destination is literally spinning towards them. At the same time, however, they are spinning away from their destination. When we say the Earth is going 1,000 miles per hour to the east, that means that the ground and airplanes on the ground and even the air above the ground are all also moving 1,000 miles per hour to the east. For an airplane to get anywhere, it has to start moving relative to the ground and through the air at something like 100 or so miles per hour. So when it flies east, it's actually moving 1,000 plus 100 miles an hour to the east. And when it flies west, it's actually moving 1,000 minus 100 miles an hour to the east. Yes, to go west, you go east, just slower than the Earth is going east. Unless you're within 10 or so miles of the poles, in which case a brisk westward walk will take you legitimately west.
Let's put what this person said into practice. An aeroplane is flying easterly. Now look how tight this aeroplane turns. Now it turns back and flies westerly. Or the aeroplane's flying westerly, it does a sharp turn, now flies direct easterly. What will happen? You see, they'll tell you, no, you just take a calculator, you add on 500 kilometers, you minus 500 kilometers, you see the aeroplane travels at the same speed, therefore the Earth is turning. It's simply a load of nonsense. It doesn't add up. For example, if the aeroplane is spinning backwards with the Earth, right, it takes off. The force is the aeroplane's being dragged backwards. As that aeroplane turns now, well, he'll be catapulted forward, and the aeroplane would disintegrate and the pilot would die. So the Earth is not moving, and that's why gyroscopes work. And another reason is that the plane that the gyroscope is on has to be flat. So let's have a look at that in more detail. So an aeroplane, when it takes off, the gyroscope maintains its angle to the ground. The horizon is the same. So the aeroplane turns, the gyroscope maintains its rigidity in space. If the aeroplane takes off or points down towards the ground for landing, the gyroscope maintains its fixed angle to the surface of the ground, and therefore the pilot can turn and land the same angle that it took off from. So some people will say, no, well, the gyroscope, it recalculates the angle. So the gyroscope is pointing towards the Earth and it's calculated like this. Well, that means the higher the airplane flies, the faster it flies. Who calculates that? The gyroscope doesn't know. And here's the point. If the airplane turns on its y-axis, for the pilot to realign with the ball, because now the ball's on the left-hand side, the pilot now has to realign its z-axis and realign its x-axis. So it can't just correct one axis, it has to correct all of them at the exact same time. So if the airplane is flying pointing down, if the airplane turns, right, it has to correct. So the airplane turns to its right, the ball is on its left hand side. The airplane now has to correct its z-axis to realign the horizon. Then the airplane has to swing around and correct itself on its x-axis so that it's always facing the horizon. So let's illustrate this point in a simple way. Here's a boy. His eyes is level with this ball, right? He turns to his right, that means the ball is on his left hand side. For him to realign his eyes with the ball, he has to turn all three axes, and that means his body has to turn so that the ball now is back in line with his eyesight. It's the same principle. But look what happens to the ball. You see, from your perspective, the ball angle changes. So how do the pilots calculate for that if the gyroscope is correcting on one axis? And now, we've all been to air shows and we've seen pilots doing tricks, right? How they flip the plane around in 3D space. And I'll tell you that the pilot maintains his position with the ground through the use of his gyroscope. So the gyroscope, as his position changes, it has to be flat. It has to be level with a flat, level surface. So if the plane takes off, the gyroscope is maintaining the pilot's position that he took off from. The horizon is always flat and level. No matter which axis the pilot spins on, his X, his Y, his Z, and he's moving in 3D space at the same time at a phenomenal speed. He always comes back and he's relying on his gyroscope, that the horizon is true. All he worries about is the horizon. It tells you that the Earth is flat. The pilot doesn't have to rearrange all three axes on the gyroscope. It tells you it's flat. It's as simple as that. It has to be flat and motionless for a gyroscope to work. Its position cannot change and the angles cannot change on one axis. So a buoy now, for example, if he's on a flat surface, he turns to his right, the horizon is still in front of him. These young men that are flipping around and they're spinning on all axes, and they still land on their feet. It would be a different story if they were on a ball, or the ball was curved. Their angles would continue to change. They wouldn't land on their feet. So what we see, we're living in a system where water, truth, they're not handing us truth, they're giving us sand. They know the truth, and the truth is not for public consumption. The truth is for them, and because if we knew the truth, well, then they wouldn't rule over us, and they wouldn't have power over us. And they need slaves and puppets to do their dirty work for them, because they're just basically lazy and stupid. So that's the world we're living in, and it just is what it is. And when they offer you something, it's junk. This is what this is. It's lip gloss. Useless. So in the system, if you pay attention, they've got us going round and round. It's the same old, same old. You see, do we open our eyes and do we look? The North Pole with Santa. So you've got you going around and around. It's the same old, same old. Unfortunately, these people in the system is controlled by Santa, Satan, and his demons. These are Baal poles, sacred poles, and we know what they represent. It's the same old, same old. So, although we're crying and groaning over the wicked things we see in this wicked system, we don't need to be discouraged, because the same way as the gyroscope is steady, it stays fixed. So the system will have you spinning around that you don't know your left from your right, your top from your bottom. That's the aim of the system. It's to disorientate you so much, because then you need them. But Jehovah, the Creator, has given us His Word, the Bible. And that's our gyroscope, mentally, emotionally, and morally. If we read the Bible and we apply what it says, we become stable, despite this wicked system. And if we look and we think, we'll see the Creator staring back at us. As we read His words, we see His eyes looking back at us. We know He cares for us. My favorite scripture in the Bible is Daniel 2 verse 44. It says that very soon, when Jesus returns in kingdom power, He will remove all the governments, all the organizations, all the criminal aspects in the system. And Jesus will rule as King. And then there will be real peace. And we will receive an education that will astound us. So it's good news. And so I can't wait for God's kingdom. So cheers and thanks for watching.